Hello and welcome to PiscesMoon Astrology. I'm your astrologer, Kate Leonard, and I'm excited to explore the stars with you. Hi everyone, happy post-eclipse week. It was something, right? We're going to get into that in just a second, but we're really talking about September 22nd through September 28th. All right, so let's do this. But I do want to start with a little, I'm thinking of it as like a peek over my shoulder at the eclipse that just happened in Pisces. I'm undecided about how I feel now that it's happened, even though we're still in eclipse energy. The event itself has happened, and I'm not sure what I think. After we review this eclipse, we are going to focus on Mercury and Mercury and Mercury. It is a big, big deal for the messenger god this week. Partly that's because next week, Mercury is moving out of home sign Virgo and moving into Libra. So we're going to get a whole different vibe from Mercury, which means this is his last week to give us his kingly, in his own domain energy. So it's really important. And he's working with some heavy hitters this week. On September 24th, Mercury is going to trine Uranus in Taurus. Then on the 25th, he's opposing Neptune. You know I do not like Neptune, right? If you know me at all, you know that is my least favorite planet. But this is kind of an interesting energy. Also, I will remind you that Neptune was involved with this eclipse, and we're going to get to that. Anyway, on the 25th, Mercury is going to oppose Neptune in Pisces. And then later that same day, he's going to trine Pluto, who's on the final degree, just sitting there, hanging out on the final degree of Capricorn. This is heavy, big stuff. And the energy is going to be a lot heavier than what we usually talk about when we're looking at Mercury. But anyway, before we get there, just a little aside about that eclipse, because I don't know about you, but it hit a lot more intensely than I had been expecting. This is the first in a series. It's a partial lunar eclipse, and it was out of sign, meaning that the nodes were not in the same signs as the sun and the moon. From what I can tell, based on what I experienced myself and my close family members, but also I work with a lot of clients, and everybody was reporting really intense things. I think the least of it that I heard was a lot of people were feeling sensitive and a little bit weepy and that kind of thing. But there were lots of health crises going on and people ending relationships, especially those with women, like friend relationships, and cutting off relationships or else setting very, very clear boundaries with their mothers. And of course, that all makes sense. Pisces is about relationships. The moon is women and the body, and the moon is very specifically mothers. So the sun was opposing in Virgo, which is a sign that has a lot to do with health things. So I guess all of the things that I've been hearing that people have been experiencing make sense. They just felt a lot bigger than a partial lunar eclipse would normally feel. Here are my two theories, and they could both be right, and I think they both are. Yikes. One, it was a light sort of go round, and next year it's going to be way, way heavier than this, right? Because this was the partial one, just launching the series that starts next year. Next year might be one heck of a ride, right? The other possibility, and I'm kind of hoping it's this, but I think it's probably both, all of the above. The other possibility is with the nodes still in Aries and Libra in that out of sign way that they were doing. Aries is a hardcore sign. It's really hardcore. And I'm wondering if the node in Aries was giving a little bit of the power punch that this eclipse had. So we can all keep our fingers crossed that it was that, because this is the last time we're going to have that configuration. I say for right now, let's agree to kind of blame Aries for the intensity of this eclipse and hope that next year really is a little bit more predictable. Or, well, eclipses are never predictable, but you get what I mean, right? Let's hope it was Aries and not that we're going to get even heavier ones next year. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you think about it. If you go over to my Substack, it's a really good place to leave comments for me, and I answer them all. And I would love to hear your ideas, and I would love to hear what you went through. It wasn't a cakewalk on this end, I'm telling you. So anyway, let's move on to Mercury, because that is the big deal going on this week. Oh my gosh, 3 intense aspects being formed. All right, so here we go. On the 24th, Mercury is going to trine Uranus, who's in fixed Earth Taurus. That's already like a heavy kind of placement, right? Or heavy is not the right word for this one. It's like dynamite. Fixed Earth, Taurus is maybe the most stubborn, unmoving kind of stubborn, not in that like you're a jerk way, but in that just I like to be firmly rooted. I want to live in what's known and what's comfortable, right? I mean, Taurus is a Venus ruled sign, so it's not mean about it. It just doesn't like change very much. Then Uranus comes along and says, wow, this Earth is like bedrock, right? I'm going to put a stick of dynamite in here and blow it up, and kaboom, things suddenly change. So we've got Mercury making a trine, which is a very positive aspect. And that's really good about this. I would not like this so much if it were making a difficult aspect. But since it's positive, let's put these two kinds of things together, right? And look at your chart. What houses are involved here with Virgo and Taurus? Which houses are going to be impacted most? You've got to look at your natal chart for that. But in general, what we're talking about is breakthroughs of the mind. Mercury is the mind. It's our communication, writing, speaking, podcasting, all you creators out there, marketing, all of that kind of stuff is Mercury. It's also travel, right? So if there has been travel that you've been wanting to do, it could be impacted by this trine. So Uranus is like, let's get unstuck. If you've been having some kind of intellectual or just, you're kind of stuck in your own ideas, everything's feeling kind of stagnant, or if in communication, you're having a difficult time getting your point across, but especially if you work in those fields like writers, marketers, all those people I already suggested, are you feeling, like you haven't had true inspiration in a while? And travel plans could be the same. I've been wanting and wanting and wanting to go. For me, it's been up to Oregon. I really want to go up to Oregon. And there's just always like a million reasons why I can't go, right? Because I'm super busy and on and on and on, like we all are. This trine could really blow that stuck thinking up. Uranus is about breaking loose of the chains that bind us. It's about fresh perspectives and thinking outside the box. So expect intellectual, creative breakthroughs, new ways of communicating, and maybe taking those trips that you've been putting off. If I go to Oregon, I'm going to let you guys know that, right? I will absolutely let you know that I ended up going. So just as we're starting to play in that very cool Mercury-Uranus energy, the very next day on September 25th, Mercury is going to go into his exact opposition with Neptune. I know, I already said it, but I cannot say the word Neptune without stressing how much I dislike Neptune. And I'm not even going to get into it because you've all heard it a million times, but ugh. And remember, Neptune was involved with this eclipse, so I'm just saying. Anyway, Neptune is in Pisces. Again, Mercury's in Virgo. This couldn't be more opposite energy. Virgo is detail oriented, ruled by Mercury, right? Detail oriented, thoughtful, particular about everything. And Pisces is the ocean. It's not about the details, it's about the flow and the union. And then the planets. Neptune is the god of the ocean, right? He's underwater. And Mercury is the mind. He's all about thinking and planning and all of that. And Neptune's, I don't know, doing the backstroke or whatever Neptune does under the water. So, anyway, this is super. I mean, I know every opposition is an opposition, but this is as opposite as you can kind of get. It's intense, but I don't hate it. Okay. I know, surprised after all of that, right? But, and this is going exact just for those of you who are very Virgoan. Is that a word? It's happening at 4 a.m. Pacific time. So I don't hate this opposition because these energies are so far apart. Oppositions invite us to find balance. They invite us to find that middle road that makes more sense usually than either of the two ends. So, what is it that we're being asked to balance here? Well, Mercury wants us to come from the mind, come from intellect and rationality, and pay attention to all the details, dot the I's and cross the T's, or whatever we're supposed to be doing. And Neptune is quite the opposite, where it's like, no, feel your way through it. Ooh, and come from instinct, come from intuition, come from all of that inner non-intellectual knowledge. And what this opposition is asking us to do and giving us the opportunity to do is to find a way to do both, right? Engage the brain for sure, but also check with your gut or your heart or whatever you want to call that other space, right? Your higher self. Check inside, get the idea and then feel it. Can you do that? Can you get right? You can picture that, right? Like you get the idea and then you sit with it and feel it for a minute. Does it feel right to you? Then go. This is a really, really nice energy, I think. Sometimes oppositions are just tense, but if you can kind of find what balance looks like, they tend to smooth out and get a little bit more positive. This one, I think, is kind of beautiful in the center. So look for the balance, the brain and the heart. I think that we'll be able to do it this week. That's what these two planets are setting us up to be able to explore. I love it. I love it. Super good, right? Okay, and that's not even all. Now let's get into the really deep, heavy. It's deep this week, right? Pisces, the ocean with Neptune, and now we're going to go to Pluto, god of the underworld. So on that same day, September 25th, later on at about 9:20 p.m., again, that's Pacific time, Mercury's going to trine Pluto, who's hanging out on that 29th degree of Capricorn. He's going to stay there until November 19th. So I want to take just a little minute and talk about actually what that means. Pluto takes 248 years to make his way all the way around the zodiac. He's been in Capricorn, except for these few stints that he's taken into Aquarius, sort of testing the waters. He's been in Capricorn for 16 years. So think about it. I think he's going to be in Aquarius. I believe it's 13 years, but I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that one, but I think that's right. Anyway, this 29th degree of a sign is always important. Think of it as the planet's last moment to do whatever needs to be done in that area of life. So in this case, Pluto's got to do all the Capricorn things, and that's going to happen in whatever house Capricorn is in your chart. But Pluto's got to do all this Capricorn stuff. This is his last opportunity, right? It's like now or never because it's 248 years before I land in this spot again. So planets at the 29th degree really pick it up. But they also, in this case, this is a retrograde. He's already left the 29th degree, gone into Aquarius, and come back. So this is probably going to feel familiar. Even before we get into Pluto, let's talk about Capricorn. Think of it as tradition. Think of it as the sign that is sort of the keeper of the old ways. Just an aside, it is very interesting that President Biden passed the torch to a younger generation during a Pluto Capricorn kind of time, right? So Capricorn is that thing. It's that older generation, but I don't just mean like our parents or whatever. What I'm talking about is the older ways, the traditions, the things we do because they've always been done that way. What is Pluto? Pluto's the god of the underworld. So it always requires going very, very deep into ourselves, really to those things that are buried, usually because of shame or trauma. Not always. Sometimes I don't know, are there reasons we bury things other than shame and trauma? Maybe. If there are, it could be that stuff too. But remember the whole Persephone myth with sexual violence and all of that kind of stuff? Usually, the stuff that's repressed, the stuff that we go underground into the underworld when Pluto's active, usually has to do with shame and trauma, almost always. He wants us to go deep. He wants us to find those things that are buried and bring them into the light. Remember the Persephone myth again, where she comes out and creates spring or whatever it is? He wants us to bring those things into the light. Why? So that we can transform deeply and permanently transform. So this is a true healing kind of energy. With Mercury involved, what kinds of things are we healing? Mercury is the mind. So going deep in the mind, I'm feeling like this is going to be about really digging into subconscious stuff, into memory, into, I don't know, all secrets. Ooh, secrets. That's going to be a big one. You might have to let go of some of your secrets on this one, right? Because Mercury's the mind. Pluto says go deep. Bring it to the light so you can be transformed. So, ooh, I love that secret thing. So what secrets have you held for a really long time that are just heavy, right? It's heavy to carry that energy, whether it's about secrets or shame or trauma. Those things that we stuff into that subconscious space are very, very heavy. And it is time to maybe let them go. And who are we if we take that burden off our backs, right? Or out of our minds, or however you want to put that. The other thing is, like I said, Capricorn is the keeper of the old ways. What things do we do just because they've always been done? What things do we do because our family does it that way, or I've always done it that way, or it's a tradition in our country, our community, our whatever it is, can be any of those kinds of things. A lot of traditions are beautiful, right? We have family traditions that I would never part with. But a lot of things that have always been done are horrible. If you really think about them, they're from older times when people were even more misogynistic, more racist, more all kinds of not really great things. And traditions carry on out of those times, and we just sort of do them because they're our normal, right? They're just what we're used to and the way it's always been. Maybe it's time to pull up some of that stuff and go, wait, do I still feel that this tradition, this way we do it in our family, whatever, right? Do I really feel that this is something I want to pass on? Is this something that should be passed on to the next generation and carried into the future? Or is this one of those things that, maybe really could stop now? Or is this one of those things that needs to be tweaked and updated? There are a lot of things we could talk about in that way, right? For example, look at gay marriage, right? We didn't throw away marriage. We didn't get rid of the tradition of getting married for people who want to get married. I personally don't understand that at all, but you know what I'm saying. What we did was changed it. We kept the tradition and changed how it works so that people can marry whoever they want to marry. That was not always the case. And talk about an old, deeply ingrained tradition. So anyway, there are some of those kinds of things, those things we've always done that, like I said, we should just let go of them. It's over. It doesn't, the purpose or the meaning is either just no longer really valuable or it's, straight up horrible or whatever, and we should let it go. Some of the things we just need to tweak. And maybe it's time when we're going through this transformative process, this deeply, deeply transformative process. Maybe it's time to invent some new stuff, like where do traditions come from? Somebody in the family says, hey, now we're going to always do this thing this way. And then everybody's like, okay, cool. And then it carries on, right? And I'm using family as an example, but I mean, it could be something as individual and simple as, I always do my writing at 10 o'clock in the morning and go until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And why do I do that? Well, because I always do that, right? It's something I just set for myself and I haven't challenged it. What might happen if I started writing at 7 o'clock at night and tried that for a while? Would I have one of those cool Uranus breakthroughs that's also going on this week? So, see how all of this energy this week is kind of coming together? It's transformation, it's breakthroughs, it's unique ideas, thinking outside of the box, it's questioning the old ways. This is very cool. And it's learning to, really test things out with both the mind and the heart and the intuition, right? So, what ties this all together and I think makes this week turn into such an interesting unified energy is Mercury. Mercury is the sort of thread. It's not that other things aren't going on in the sky, but Mercury is really the big actor this week. And I think we're going to find our ideas really changing about a lot. And I, for one, am super excited about it. I hope you are too. And I hope I was able to make all of that make sense one way or another. As always, thank you so much. If you made it through the end of this, I honestly can't tell you how grateful I am. This is a kind of scary thing for me to do in a lot of ways. This is outside my box for sure. And so just knowing that there are people out there who are listening to me and supporting me as I grow and learn how to do this thing, I just want you to know it matters a lot to me. If you could share the podcast, that would be super wonderful. Anyway, that's all I've got for you for now. So until next week, go out and seize the energies of the stars. That's what I wish for you always. And I'll talk to you then. Bye.